Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I am Hans Ulrich, of course, almost 3 decades in the business as a pro, in the trenches, market maker, ETF fund manager, income trader, and I'm happy to have you here. As always, it is your trade, your responsibility. If you're okay with that, let's keep on going. What an interesting day it was. I think this tech market is getting very, very bifurcated, very, very interesting. I think some of the things that I've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 months, the fact that there is a level of disruption happening and potentially that's going to happen over the next few years that is really almost difficult to quantify. And we can take, for example, what's going on with Adobe, which is a very, very inexpensive stock based on current free cash flow, based on current valuation, fantastic, fantastic numbers. But you can argue that all you want. The fact is that that doesn't matter to investors right now. This is such a disruptible environment that what's happening right now, what your metrics are telling you right now, are not nearly as important as forecasting and taking a look down the road 1, 2, 3 years. How is this company going to be doing in 2 or 3 years? And it's very possible that Adobe does just great and they sort this out and everything's great. And then they have a big re-rating like Google did. They go from being maybe they're in very, very big trouble to, hey, they've sorted it out and this multiple is way too low. And they're actually taking control in this space. But we don't know that. And the problem is markets don't like the not knowing. Uncertainty, as you've always heard, uncertainty is not the friend of markets. And so this is the situation where we're getting a little bit of black and white, very binary in this tech industry because, and as it relates to other industries perhaps as well, because it's going to be either somebody just takes winner take all, like a Google. It looks like they're starting to kind of mow the lawn of a lot of people. They've come out and said they're now doing the things that, these 6 apps could do, and then these 6 platforms could do. That is a problem for somebody like an Adobe that is very much producing fantastic quality stuff. They're very ingrained in enterprise, in business. 90% of their licenses are out there. This is a very, very good, sticky, reliable kind of recurring revenue. But the problem is, what is going to happen in this new world of agentic AI where suddenly you can create apps with a prompt? It is truly amazing. I watched a video this morning. They talked about how you can basically create this sort of agentic AI kind of thing that continuously works for you as you're sleeping, right? So remember, as I talk about, the gears never stop turning. Well, with agentic AI, that gets absolutely turbocharged. If it wasn't already insane mode, we're now going into super insane mode because you can now teach these things to basically do all your work while you're sleeping. You get up in the morning, this thing has done like millions of lines of code and whatever, and you've created all this amazing stuff. That is very, very disruptive. When you take away some of the necessary skill sets that have given certain companies what they have, and you've given that sort of democratized tool where anybody can kind of go in. I know I'm simplifying it now, but if it isn't there yet, imagine that it will be in a year from now, in 2 years from now, in 3 years from now. What does the environment look like? So this is a reality, is that this stock is either probably still too expensive or it's incredibly cheap, which is exactly where Google was. It was in trouble, it's some trouble, right? It always had parts of the business which were fantastic, which I talked about. I said, look, a lot of this business is amazing, but they've got a big problem with a big chunk of their revenue, which came from search. Similar sort of thing here, except this isn't the same in a way because they don't have all the fallback. Google is an incredibly vertically integrated AI company. It does everything from equipment to cloud to productivity suites. It's getting into literally everything, and it has the top model. It's now got the TPUs that are very well respected. And so the upside is incredible because in a world of incredible disruption, if you have a lot of things covered, you're less likely to be in trouble. And so Meta, for example, another one that I've been bearish on, look at this thing. It's also falling off a cliff because all it wants to do is create more compute as it searches for that sort of artificial general intelligence, right? That AGI, it's just going for it. And that's going to involve a hell of a lot of spend, a hell of a lot of compute, a hell of a lot of use of electricity. And look at the deal with Trump And Microsoft saying it's going to start footing the bill. So we are seeing a very important moment in time where we've gone from a number of years of the Mag 7 really not being able to put a foot wrong, right? They all pretty much did well. I mean, Tesla's sort of a different story, but they could all really, really do well because in the early parts of a mania, you basically have, or a new innovation, you have every boat getting lifted by the tide, right? So everyone's doing well because there's this sort of massive optimism, and anybody who's sort of, partially, directly, indirectly, adjacent, related to the theme is going to do well. Now we're getting to the point where we're seeing correlation in the mag absolutely plunge from about 4 or 5 months ago. And that means that they're starting to get a little bit pickier. They're saying, you're going to do well, Google, and you're not going to do well, Meta, or at least we don't think so. And so here's Microsoft, a fantastic company, probably, arguably second after Google. And look at this thing just starting to fall out of bed. It has that exposure to software. Here's my beloved Snow, which I absolutely love. I think to some extent they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but I think the fears are well founded. This is an uncertain time when you can create anything from your bathroom, basement, bedroom. I mean, this is really, truly unprecedented levels of innovation that we're about to see. And so here we are thinking that basically AI is going to eat everything. And so it's kind of like, this is sort of getting to be a little bit of it's Google's world and we just live in it, right? This is, and I don't know how good that is. I don't know how good that is for markets. I don't know how good that is for society. But importantly, I think there's a very important thing, as I mentioned a moment ago, is that we get this pushback, and now they're starting to say, well, listen, you guys are going to shoulder some of the cost of this electricity because you are causing problems out there, right? And what are other problems? There's going to be joblessness. That's another problem. So is it a stretch to say that at some point, Trump says, listen, you guys are causing a lot of disruption. You're causing, these tools that you're creating are leading to a lack of hiring, perhaps some firing. What are you going to do about that, right? So my point is that these companies are not in trouble. They're still fantastic. They still account for an incredible amount of revenue. And I don't think that really changes very much. But markets perform at the margin, as I always say. So if there's just a change in narrative, and I think this is more than a small change in that these companies are starting to deal with the competition. They're starting to take on debt. They're having pushback from the government, from society, which will probably be more and more so over time. And there's some exposure to software here. Does AI suddenly make operating systems, not necessary anymore, or it replaces them, right? You think of, that's what technology does, right? Uber comes in, it's not reinventing taxis, it's just giving you a new way to do it, and it wipes out an entire industry, and it says, okay, we've taken over. So it's not that we're not going to use operating systems anymore or use software anymore. It's just quite possible that new solutions come along that are cheaper, that cause margin compression in companies like this. This is a very, very real problem. And I think the market, technology is grappling with that. And what does that mean? Well, I believe that is part of how things are shifting into other parts of the market, which are from the builders, which have all these challenges now, not least of which is these bottlenecks, right? We're not going to have enough power. Are we going to have a whole bunch of GPUs sitting there that actually can't be powered up, right? Are we going to have supply chain issues? Are we going to have trouble like we're seeing with Micron and memory, which I called a long, long time ago, by the way. Everybody's talking about it now, like they're an HBM expert. Are we going to have those kinds of problems where we just can't get the physical stuff to continue to make the things that we need? That is a problem. That is a tech problem. It is not a end user problem for the most part, because what does the end user do? Well, if we didn't come up with another artificial intelligence model or an improved one ever again, we have enough technology to drastically change the way companies do business for the next 50 years. We don't need to come up with anything more new, anything innovative, anything novel. This is it. It is done. And that's why the focus is shifting, not just to the rebuilding industrialized theme of rebuilding the world for what's happening in technology, but also this idea that it's going to spread throughout like a funnel. It goes up and it goes from being very, very concentrated in a few names, which remember the concentration in markets we were all complaining about. Oh my gosh, it's like, a few companies are lifting the weight. Well, guess what? Be happy about it. It's now spreading out because IWM, the small caps are going to be able to do well. The mid caps are going to be able to do well. We're going to be taking all these productivity gains and turning it into better profit margins, and we'll sort out the employment situation later. But for now, this is going to move into the everything else, the others. Remember Nicole Kidman in that movie, The Others? This is the others, but it's not scary like that one. It's going to be beneficial because a lot of the areas outside of technology account for a lot of jobs. Small, medium businesses account for a ton of jobs. So as long as we start seeing improvements there, maybe the job situation actually stabilizes a little bit as we spread the wealth of AI into other areas of the economy, into different sectors, into different themes that are not just NVIDIA, Microsoft, and the usual suspects. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into the shifts we're seeing and why I believe they're durable, because I really do believe there's some durability there. When you think about, the move into needing more copper, silver is like a small portion of what is necessary out there. You think for most cases, AI doesn't care if silver goes up another 30%. It's not a big factor in the cost. So think of it that way. $40, $50, $80, $100 an ounce. It doesn't really matter that much, but when they need it, they pay up for it, right? So there's stuff going on out there that is really starting to juice the real world part of the economy, and I think that's very, very exciting. So we're going to have to see how this plays out, but it's going to be a very interesting year. It's going to be full of potholes and disruption, like this Adobe situation across the board, and I think that level of uncertainty could maybe seep in at some point. So at some point, we're gonna have to be a little bit more careful in our bullishness. If Google basically takes over every business on earth, I don't know if that's great for the S&P 500. Now, I'm obviously exaggerating, but we have to recognize that that sort of thing is happening. It is extreme winners and it is extreme losers, and there's a few in between that are fighting for which way they're going. And I think that's a very real reality of this new environment, this new economy, and tech and AI as it is right now. So I hope you enjoyed that. Check out some of the programs down in the description. We've got Turbo Trader Scanner, which is fantastic for finding trades, for income, for upside. We just killed it on Google. We just killed it on Goldman Sachs. We got out right before the drop. Fantastic. You know what? This is a great program that looks through thousands of stocks for just the right things. And then we've got our Leaps Trader program, which is really starting to fire up again here, and we're getting some new members, and we're really excited about that because there are different plays now. We are not just going for the usual suspects. We are going for interesting things like Quanta, the people who are going to absolutely service the electrical grid, the power gen world, which is 100% important for this build out. So everybody have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and we shall see you next time.